haven't seen it. And that this should be done one exhibit at a time. It's in here. I'm going to have objections to some of these. Some of these exhibits. I don't want to introduce all at once.
Okay.
We should explain what it is, etc. And before it goes.
Well, Mr. Kelly, you did a very similar thing. You introduced the whole binder full of exhibits, which is generally helpful to the board to have it all in a neat package. And as you know, this isn't a court. These are not being accepted only for identification, nor are they being accepted as full exhibits at any point. They are accepted only for the weight that the board chooses to give them. And I think you should, I don't want to say A, but in the first place, as Mr. McGilvery is going through them, object to anything you want to at that time. And also afterwards, after you've had a chance to review it, let us know if you have exhibits to the board who object at that point. Just remember that the grounds for objection are pretty narrow before a zoning board.
All right. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to proceed.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Stachura, could you introduce yourself to the board, please?
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Fred Stachura, and I'm a resident of Tiverton, Rhode Island, and Alexandria, Virginia. And I'm here tonight to give testimony regarding some of the planning and historic preservation issues presented in this matter.
Now, Mr. Stachura, I'm going to let you largely testify without kind of a direct examination, but could you go over in detail what your background is so the board can know what expertise you have, if any?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree from Boston College in history. I have a master's degree in preservation planning from Boston University, and I have a JD degree from St. Luke's University School of Law. That's my educational background. My professional background is that I am the supervisor of the Neighborhood Revitalization Section of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission in Maryland, which actually is one of the largest planning commissions in the nation. We oversee the development of the greater Washington, D.C. area in Prince George's and Montgomery counties. So as my role as supervisor of neighborhood revitalization, I review all sorts of development review cases, as well as being the liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission of my agency. Also, I am the chairman of the board and president of the Maryland Association of Historic District Commissions, which is a statewide nonprofit organization whose primary function is to provide educational and technical support for historic preservation commissioners throughout the state of Maryland. I am also an adjunct professor of preservation law and planning at the University of Maryland Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Historic Preservation.
Mr. Chairman, I think we're going to ask some witnesses in there and fiduciary relationship with any of the objectives.
He's an expert, though, correct? We asked the expert and everything else, so he's the expert testimony here. He's an expert. We wouldn't think an expert would be in cahoots with something like that, correct?
You should ask.
So, you didn't ask the expert, but you're an expert for the objectors, correct?
Correct.
You have the ties to, I don't know, I have that, it's fine, that's
Yes, I think the reason why we don't do it that way is he can ask those questions on cross-examination if he likes.
Which is required of the other witnesses.
He's not, this guy's, I'm considering this guy an expert. I don't think an expert will lie of this. People who speak in favor, against, will ask that question. The experts, I think, under their word, that they just should be telling the truth.
I agree.
That's what I think. Consider the man an expert. I should not be questioning that we consider him an expert. I consider an expert would not know.
Prior to my employment in the greater Washington, D.C. area, I was an adjunct historic preservation professor at Roger Williams University. I was also project director at the Providence Preservation Society.
Is that a summary of your background educationally and professionally?
Yes, pretty much so.
I'd like to submit Mr. Stachura as an expert in planning, zoning, and historic preservation.
That's good.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll take his expert testimony.
Mr. Stachura, can you make your presentation, please?
Can I stop you for 1 second? Could you please raise your hand? Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, members of the board. One thing I want to kind of set it straight right from the beginning is pretty much why I'm here, and I think that kind of came up a little bit. In addition to providing testimony in opposition to the application that's before you, as I mentioned to you, I have deep ties to the state of Rhode Island. I was born here, raised in Lincoln, Rhode Island, and lived in Tiverton, or live in Tiverton for the past 20 years. I've been in Washington, D.C. area, in Alexandria, Virginia, since 2008, where I've been professionally employed as a planner and historic preservationist. The reason I came back was when I heard about the project, and as council noted, I'm not here to oppose the project, and I'll make that very clear. I think the project can be refined, and I think that it's something that Bristol actually, does need and would be helpful. But there are some very major concerns that I want to point out this evening. So I came here actually voluntarily and have been involved in this with this board, whether you know it or not, for several months now. My testimony will supplement my written testimony that was submitted to the board on May 9th of 2019. And it's my understanding that that meeting, I was down in Washington, and that meeting was continued because I guess there was some issue with some of the other expert witnesses in attendance or unable to attend. So anyway, you should have my letter to be entered into the record. And again, my oral testimony today supplements, what I stated in my letter of May 9th to your board.
So we'd like to have that letter be Exhibit B.
Do you have a copy?
We do have a copy. Okay, we'll submit it after his testimony.
I'd like to have a copy.
You have a copy of his testimony? No, we only have one copy. The board, it's been submitted to the board previously.
This was submitted to the board and it was submitted to the interested parties.
It's been in the file.
I understand.
I understand that, but usually for an exhibit to be introduced, we like to have a formal copy for the exhibit and keep the record. So, tell you what, why don't you give it to me a second and we'll throw it on the copier. Sure. Do we have a second?